he's in a really good place. And he's in a better place than he was in 2017. And so if you take the average of the polling, not just Ipsos, but all of us, it's around 48, 49% approval rating. That's really strong in a hyper-polarized world, a world like that we live in. In 2017, it was 41%. So Trump 2.0, in my evaluation, is much more robust, much more muscular, and he has a much stronger coalition than he did in 2017.
Well, so when we take a good starting position, I guess, just how difficult historically has a good start been to hold on to? I think we all remember early on in President Biden's term, approval pretty good. Post-Afghanistan withdrawal, it precipitously dropped, and it really never recovered after that. So what does history suggest about patterns here?
Yeah, time is not your friend when you're a president and we're looking at your approval ratings. But basically, he's in his honeymoon period. This is the period when Americans writ large will give him the benefit of the doubt, give the president the benefit of the doubt. What we know is the following. Presidents typically have about 6 months before approval ratings begin to decline more precipitously. On average, a decline is between 5 and 7 points. And we will see, obviously, because he might buck the trend, but really he has those 6 months to get things done and get his agenda pushed through.
Well, he certainly isn't waiting 6 months to try to get things done. He didn't even wait 6 hours, arguably, after he was inaugurated. So if we could get into some of his initiatives, beginning with the one that we've paid a lot of attention to here at Bloomberg, considering the cast of characters involved, the Department of Government Efficiency and Elon Musk and these wider efforts to trim down the size of the federal government. So far, is this popular?
Yeah, it is popular. And indeed, we pulled on a whole host of executive orders. Some aren't very popular. Some are. Those linked to government efficiency, saving, the public's money, are very popular. They're above 60%, which is strong, and once again, in a highly polarized America, public opinion in general is supporting, at this moment, those efforts.
Even the efforts being led by Elon Musk, I do wonder if there's any data on how people feel about him specifically as an unelected individual who is playing such a big role here.
People support those efforts. And Elon Musk, when you look across the board, the political figures, let's treat him as a political figure in this case,
sure,
across the board, he has pretty good favorability scores. High 30s, low 40s, once again, that's a good place to be in a highly polarized America like we see today.
Okay, so if what he is doing is popular, what's on the unpopular side of what we've seen so far? What is least popular?
Well, the administration has backtracked, right? And when they froze all funding to basically grants and services, they backtracked. They reversed the order. Only 20% of Americans agree with that executive order. So that's an example. Like when it really hits the pocketbook, when it affects sort of children or the family, when it is seen as unfair, those sorts of executive orders are less popular. But once again, there are some that are very popular, some that are less so.
So when we consider, for example, the effort to dismantle USAID or the pullback in foreign aid specifically, not necessarily the money that's being spent on social programs or what have you here at home, do people care about this, or is this largely something happening in NGO circles, those of us here in Washington that are paying attention?
We're worried about it in the Beltway. No one else is. The bubble, yes, exactly, the bubble. Basically, foreign aid has always been an easy target. Most Americans think that we're spending in the wrong place when we're spending on foreign aid. And it makes total sense from a strategic perspective that the administration is going after it, because really you don't have much public support for that. Indeed, those sorts of efforts have support in the mid-50s to the low 60s, depending on how you ask the question specifically. So once again, public opinion is behind it.
So if we consider foreign policy issues as well, not just in terms of foreign aid, but in, say, the expansion perhaps, or manifest destiny, widening U.S. borders, looking at Canada as the 51st state, or taking over Greenland or Panama, for that matter. We've already seen the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, Mount Denali to Mount McKinley. Is there support for these kinds of notions? Do Americans want America to get bigger in terms of footprint?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Americans don't like the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico.
They don't?
No, it's in,
Gulf of America is unpopular.
It's a weak plurality that are in support of that. No, in general, this sort of more muscular foreign policy, Americans are not in favor of. Indeed, that's one of the reasons that Trump ultimately won. Not even Republicans support those sorts of efforts. And so once again, if he pushes those efforts forwards, those initiatives forwards, it will be misaligned with public opinion.
Well, and it's not just in the case of Canada, him wanting to have Canada join the United States, become a state united with the United States. He's also trying to exercise a lot of leverage over Canada with the form of tariff threats. Obviously, that's been punted a bit, but there was a lot of warning from American industry specifically about the impact tariffs could have on American jobs, on costs for American people. Does the electorate reflect that in terms of favorability views around tariffs, or are they largely supportive of the kind of policy?
Support for tariffs has declined over the last, let's say, month and a half.
Okay.
And so if we were talking, let's say, in mid-November, I would tell you that a majority of Americans are in favor of it. Right now, we're seeing strong pluralities in favor of it. I think the reality has set in a bit. That said, when you peel away the onion and you look at Republicans, supermajority support for such efforts.
Well, especially, I guess, when those efforts are tied to, at least in the words of the president, issues of border security, stopping the flow of fentanyl and migrants over the northern and southern borders. Obviously, that's not where those efforts stop. We've seen a lot of border and immigration-oriented action from this president so far, ranging from trying to end birthright citizenship, which has run into trouble in courts, to just sending more troops to the border, ending asylum claims, that kind of thing. How do people feel about the range of those efforts? Are some things more popular than others?
Yeah, America is not a monolith.
Sure.
And Americans see the nuance. And so a supermajority percent of Americans, 87% of Americans, support the deportation of illegal immigrants who are also criminals. Indeed, that's where the administration is really focused. There's a lot of support for that. But when you start to deal with children or involve children, birthright citizenship, DACA sort of children, and adjacent sort of segments, Americans do not support it. So once again, broad-based support for deporting, all the criminals that are here illegally, but much more nuanced, less support for other sorts of deportation.